Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the program choices in Europe. I'm really excited that you guys are here to hear about this. As you know, as many of you know, we have a 15-year-old and 12-year-old ourselves. And since learning about the option in Europe and knowing that this is the way that we'll be going, our lives are so much different. So our 15-year-old, he's a sophomore, and he will be taking exactly 4 AP classes. For many programs, he wouldn't need to. We talk about admissions next month, but just bear with me. He has a reasonable amount of homework each night. He has time to go have dinner with my dad and stepmother once a week. He's really close to his grandfather, so he's able to do that without it interfering in his homework. He has more than enough time for friends, more than enough time for video games, unfortunately. It's just a really nice balance to life. We have dinner as a family. We can travel without worrying about it. He can explore his passions and his interests because he's interested in them, not because it's going to look good on his applications. And the other great thing is when he does go to college, we're not going to go into debt for it. It's reasonable and we'll be able to afford it. And the experience he'll have when he's there is one that will encourage him to be a global citizen and give him a true global perspective. I've always had concerns about the college process here. I've had concerns about admissions, tuition, campus life issues, quality of education issues. And whenever I found a solution for one, the other issues were still present. So when I learned about college in Europe and the benefits and what life could be like, I realized that other Americans would want to know about this too. So I spent over a year researching this and visiting schools and talking to administrators in Europe and talking with American students who are already doing this so that we can bring you beyond the States. And we found that there's a lot of interest. Parents are interested, students are interested, and the press is interested too, as you can see by some of the places that we've been featured in. So why college in Europe? What are some of these benefits I'm talking about? First of all, the average of our listings, we have over 1,500 programs that are conducted entirely in English throughout continental Europe listed on our database. The average tuition of the programs we have listed is $7,291 a year. 533 programs are under $5,700 per year, and many of these are just 3 or 3.5 year programs. So we're going to be discussing admissions more next month in our webinar, but I will just give you a sneak peek that it is a whole different world. It's non-selective at many universities, and the focus is more on the fit of the program and student than the highly competitive process we have here. The travel opportunities, not only is going to school in Europe a travel opportunity in itself, but there are often required or optional semesters abroad, years abroad, and internships. Not only that, but then the travel that you're able to do just because you're living in Europe. It's really compact, and so going from country to country is very doable and reasonable. Language skills, you're not going to need to know the language skills, the language in order to go to school in Europe for any of the academic work, but certainly you're going to want to learn it to go to the grocery store, to go to the pubs, etc. And most countries or colleges offer some sort of fast track program to learn the language of the place that you're studying. We also recently did a blog about the competitive edge it was going to give you. What a lot of U.S. employers are saying is that U.S. graduates lack the soft skills that are needed to really excel in the workforce. And we did some looking at it, and the skills that you're going to gain as a student in Europe are those that employers are looking for. 1 second, please. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the different types of schools you're going to find in Europe. So the first thing we have are the research universities. And these are what you're used to here in the States with our big universities. The focus of these universities, though, is to prepare their students for master's degree program, research-based, based programs. And most of them offer master's degree programs and doctorate degree programs as well. Then you have the university colleges. University colleges in the Netherlands and Germany are schools that are attached. They're part of a regular research university, but they're the honors level liberal arts program within the university. What's confusing is that in other countries like Belgium and Denmark, when they use the term university college, it's another term for University of Applied Science. So what is a University of Applied Science? We really have no equivalent here. People say to me, oh, is that like a junior college or a community college? No, it's not. Universities of Applied Science offer a full bachelor's degree program, but the focus is more on applying that knowledge outside of the classroom in the professional field. And I'll tell you, when I was a student, I have my master's in social work, and the courses I really enjoyed were ones where it was focusing on this applied knowledge. Many of these have their own master's degree programs, and the master's degree program itself also has that practical focus. The issue is that if you get your bachelor's degree from a University of Applied Science, you're going to need to take some supplementary courses before you can go to a research university's master's degree program, because you're not going to have the courses like statistics and such that you would need for a research-based master's degree program. And likely, if you came to a master's degree program here in the States, you would also need that. I will also say that just like here in the States, there's a little bit of a academic snobbery between private universities or Ivy Leagues and state schools. In some countries, there's that between research universities and universities of applied science. The exception is the Netherlands, where they're just seen as different, but one isn't necessarily seen as better than the other. The other thing I'll tell you about the Netherlands, in our admissions webinar, we talk about the admissions requirements for that country, and the research universities in the Netherlands require American students to have 4 AP courses with scores of 3 or more, but the universities of applied sciences in the Netherlands do not have this this requirement. So it's a good way to get into some pretty cool programs throughout the Netherlands. Okay, and then we have specialized schools. Usually these are private. You can be a University of Applied Science and still be a private university, but these have more of a focus, specialized focus like business or hospitality. The American schools fit into this as well. Most of these schools, and also the University of Applied Sciences, are not eligible for the global rankings, the rankings you see in like US News, Times Higher Education. Those sorts of rankings they can't be eligible for because they don't do the research component. So, so rankings in themselves are a difficult indicator to assess all of these programs by. We do have it noted though on our database if a school is ranked by US News, Times Higher Education, Shanghai, QS. But all of our programs are fully accredited. All of the programs we have listed, we have made sure that they're accredited by whatever is required in their specific country. So I personally could get on my own soapbox about global rankings and what I think of rankings, but I won't. What I will say is that we also have things that really do speak more to the quality of the undergraduate experience and education experience. Like for business schools, there is EQUIS and AACSB, and these are international ranking systems, and they do look at things like the professor's interactions with the students, things teaching effectiveness, professional engagement, academic quality, professional relevance, interaction with the corporate world, internationalization. Those are all things that these sorts of rankings look at, as opposed to how many times our professors have been published in different journals and such. So we do note those for the business schools as well. Okay, so let's talk about the biggest difference between Europe and the States, which is that when you apply to school in Europe, you're applying to an actual program, not just a school, but the actual program. So it's like knowing your major ahead of time. Let me also say this. I didn't say this at the beginning, and I meant to. At this point, I'm not able to see any questions that you're posting, because I'm also looking at the slides, but I will be answering all the questions at the end of the webinar. So absolutely keep them coming, and know that I'm not ignoring you if you haven't seen a response as of yet. Okay, so back to the programs. I say that now because you're likely to have many questions about this in particular, because it's so different to us. Our kids aren't really taught in a way that encourages them to know their specialization or their special area of interest by the time that they finish high school. So this really kind of concerns a lot of people. One of the reasons that programs are 3 or 3.5 years long is there aren't those gen ed requirements generally. They're able to just kind of hit the ground running on their area of interest. However, I will say that there are some liberal arts programs for students who don't know what they would like to do or who just want a broader education. And then there are also a lot of integrated or very general programs as well. So these are the general areas of study. And for most of these, you will find, a program that is called integrated social sciences or liberal arts, of course, or sort of a general communications program. But then there are also more narrow or integrated programs, like there's business for the broad, and then a more specific example would be agribusiness, and the most specific would be international wine business or the international business of food and flowers, which by the way sounds super cool to me. For arts and design, there's arts, culture, and media. There's fine arts, there's character animation. We have general communications, and then also like a public relations options. And these are just examples. You would be shocked at the types of programs that you never would have thought of that they have. There's computer science that's sort of general, or game design. Engineering is usually pretty specific in terms of chemical engineering, electrical engineering, although there is a general engineering program at Tallinn Institute of Technology, which, by the way, is free to international students. There's also a more general program in Denmark as well. Health sciences is something that's generally more specific: nursing, physiotherapy, global or public health, and such. Earth sciences, there are a number of general options, and then there are a number of programs that have to do with sustainability, like the sustainable use of natural resources. Humanities, often there are broad programs like philosophy, but more integrated options there as well. Social science has some really cool integrated programs. There's a PPE program. It's politics, political science, and economics. It's quite popular, and a number of universities offer those in English. And then there are broad international studies programs, or more specific area study programs, be it Asian studies, Dutch studies, European studies. And then there are the liberal arts options. Most of these are in the Netherlands at those university colleges I told you about. But there are also the American universities that offer them. And then about 1 or 2 programs in most of the other countries that offer some sort of liberal arts program. I will say the term liberal arts, even in this country, is broader than it's intended. When we're using the word liberal arts ourselves for our purposes here, it's basically to say that you don't have to know your major ahead of time, that there will be a year of gen ed requirements. The Netherlands have more of the true liberal arts philosophy that the liberal arts colleges here in the States report to have, but otherwise it is more of just not having to know your major immediately and having some gen ed requirements. So there are a number of academic differences. We here have semester hours in the US, and so students in college take 12 to 15 semester hours or credit hours a semester, and those are equal to the amount of time that they are supposed to be in the classroom. In Europe, it's calculated as ECTS. It's a European Credit Transfer System, and it's about the total workload for the class in and out of the classroom. It gets a little bit complicated with the math behind it, but what I can tell you is it takes between 180 and 240 ECTS to graduate, depending on the program, for most programs, and that you should expect to spend 30 to 40 hours per week in and out of the classroom total. So that includes the amount of time spent reading, studying for tests, working on group work, and in the classroom. Lots of universities, when they have lectures, they also have a small seminar component that is very discussion-based. So students report that they really do have to be on top of their reading to be prepared for those discussion-based seminars, and also to be on track for, usually there's just 1 or 2 tests or assignments that their grade is based on. So they have to stay on top of their reading in order to be prepared for those tests. I'll also say, for all of this, we're talking about a continent, so I'm speaking very generally here. There will always be exceptions to what I'm saying because we're talking about a whole number of countries within this continent. ECTS, that is consistent among all of the countries. It's something that was created by the Bologna Declaration to sort of standardize a lot throughout Europe. But as I talk about lectures, as I talk about seminars, as I talk about relationships with professors, which I'm about to, please know that a lot of that does vary country to country, school to school. But when I speak of these things, they are trends that I'm seeing, or that I'm seeing in many places. So going back to the academic difference, there aren't a lot of homework assignments, as I was saying, that are given here. I was shocked to learn in current college students how many homework assignments they have here in the US, and how they're sort of spoon-fed and evaluated. It almost feels like a continuation of high school a lot of times. And there, it's really not. It's midterm and final. Sometimes it's oral exams, which I had never heard of, which sound really intimidating, but students tend to like it. And there's a lot of group work too. Grade inflation is a lot different. Professors, administrators, and students have told me that you just don't even expect an A. One administrator at Sciences Po told me that A's were reserved for the professor and for God. And so to say that you expect an A is to say that you think you're as smart as the professor, which is somewhat offensive. However, in Northern Europe, in particular Scandinavia, there's this flat hierarchy that extends to the classroom. And so professors are generally called by their first name. They're accessible through email. One student told me she's still thrown off because the emojis or emoticons or whatever that her professor uses in emails to her. In Denmark, they have something called Friday bars, which is where the professors set up a bar in a classroom in their department, and students from all over the department come and hang out with each other and hang out with the professor on Friday afternoons. And we talk more about the drinking culture and the differences there in our student life webinar that we'll have 2 months from now. But also in the Netherlands, it's often the professor, and in some other countries as well, they serve an advisory role, which is something you won't find here in the States very often. Not only are they teaching the classes, they're teaching the seminars, and then they're also assigned students to serve in an advisory role, which is pretty cool to me. So who is this for? These are the qualities that you're going to need to be successful in Europe. There's a lot less hand-holding in Europe. The resources are there, but you really do have to seek them out and find them more than you do here. I'm reminded, one of the students we helped, we have blogs about him, Jared, when he got into KU Leuven, as opposed to here where you get the huge envelope and all the information about all the different resources and everything else, he got, a half-page letter. So there's not kind of the fanfare around it that we have here a lot. You're going to have a really different experience than your peers are having here in the States. And so you need to be okay with that and be curious and adventurous and okay sort of being outside of the box. Along the lines of having to look for the resources, you're going to need to be proactive and able to ask for help. That's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me, actually, a lot of times. And you're going to have to get over that. I do know that sometimes there are not as many opportunities to cultivate these qualities throughout high school. And you may not have them yet, or your kids may not have them yet if you're a parent. But as long as there's a willingness and a desire to develop these qualities, even if you don't have them and they're not prominent yet, you're going to be okay. So how can we help? As you know, we have these webinars. We do give monthly webinars. I'm visiting a number of schools in the DC area, North Carolina, and the Chicago area. And in those areas, we're also doing information sessions. So if you live in those areas, you know anyone who would like to join us, please let us know. And we also have blog updates quite often with information about this too. When you join, we have a membership which gives access to our searchable database. We have monthly customer Q&A calls. By the way, if there are any members on the call right now, we are having our monthly Q&A call directly after this, so feel free to join us on that call as well. And that's strictly Q&A. Whatever questions you have, I answer them. We have a number of different membership options to help everyone who kind of just wants a DIY approach with the access to the database and the Q&A calls, up to having that in addition to a personalized list of best fit college programs that I create for you after learning about you or your child's interests and qualifications and all of that. And we also have packages that include sort of coaching through the whole process, either a few check-ins or on a monthly basis. And what we're going to do now, and the other thing we have our newsletter. If you are not signed up for our newsletter, please do. We just send stuff out weekly. We promise not to bombard you with stuff. And we're also on social media. I've been doing the Facebook post, and I've had fun finding or sharing actually interesting books that I'm reading, articles, information about food in Europe, and all sorts of related information there. So if you haven't already, please like us on Facebook. And now I am going to open it up for questions. Okay, so let me see where to start. Okay, is it possible for American students to work while studying in most of these countries? I've heard that they show preference to EU. Yes, they do show preference. Finding time to work is often an issue, and depending on your country, there are sometimes restrictions on work. Some of the students I've talked to have gotten jobs working a lot in like sort of babysitting type stuff, which is what I did in college myself for part of it as well. Because a lot of families do want their children to be exposed to English, but that really depends country to country based on the visa information. Okay, let's see. North Carolina, Stephanie. We have a parent night here in Chapel Hill and also one in Raleigh in early October. If there were interest in Charlotte, I would be happy to come down and do an information night. So feel free to correspond with me. If you know a group of parents who would be interested in attending an information night, shoot me an email. Older students over 30. Graduate students, certainly being over 30 is not an issue. Here's what I've seen. There is no official policy about older students. However, I have seen unofficial documentation that as people, I've seen it closer to mid-30s and on, some colleges in some countries see it more as a way that somebody's trying to come and get a visa. Certainly older, when we're talking about older up to 30, I have not seen that as an issue for anything. And there are a lot of students who are in their late 20s just starting college there. And Wayne had a similar question as well. So again, it's not an official policy at most of these schools. You might find a little bit of hesitance or resistance based on that sort of skepticism that the admissions department may have. Okay, what's the best membership to get if you're on a budget? I would absolutely do the DIY because which that has the searchable access. We have a 6-month version and a 12-month version of it. And it's our most affordable membership. And then you also have access to the monthly Q&A calls for members. So you can ask any of those questions that come up that you would use during a consultation in those calls. Raj, we do not list programs in the UK, and I'll tell you for a few reasons why. Number one is that all of the programs there are conducted in English. The other is that the other issue is that we found that in the UK there are similar issues to the ones we have here in the States with affordability and sometimes with the admissions process. And a lot of the English conducted programs are filled with students from the UK who are also trying to sort of opt out of that as well. Now, certainly there are some fantastic programs in the UK, like the ones you mentioned, but we have chosen not to focus on those for now. Brooke, is it too late to apply for school for this coming fall? If you were talking about 2016, yes. For 2017, well, some schools allow for winter admission, and we're noting those in our database right now. But for the 2017 school year, the admission process, depending on the country and school, is anywhere from starting in October through all the way through next summer. But the issue is that even for schools that aren't starting until October, you would have visa issues that would prevent you from going for this fall. Your son is homeschooled. Oh, is Julian on this call? There is another member who is also homeschooling who has given me fantastic information about this. There is something, and Julian, feel free to pipe in if you will. There is some way, so you need transcripts, you need official transcripts, and I understand, and you need an official diploma. And so Julian, oh, here she is. Julian is here. Julian, what is a place you were telling me about with the transcripts? Would you mind speaking to that? I know you had said that it was much more reasonable than some of the kind of private homeschool places. I'm going to wait and let Julian answer that for you, Brooke. Julian has been a great source of information for me on the homeschool situation. Okay, application deadlines, Patrick. Oh, how are EU degrees accepted in the US? They are accepted. These are all accredited, just like, so if you were looking for a master's degree program, they would assess it the same way as they would assess your qualifications from any other school in the US as well. So in terms of the an application deadlines, again, it depends on the country. Anywhere, deadlines are generally starting in January and go on all the way through early summer, depending on the country and school. So the jobs that are available do, it depends on your program. But what I will say is that there are some recruitment events. The other thing is that most schools offer internship possibilities, which really do give you those connections and resources to find a job. But there are recruiters on campus. They do work. Most of the schools do have a recruitment department. Which countries do you think are generally the most friendly to American students? I will say that the Netherlands is a big one. I know you've probably sick of hearing me say the Netherlands, but they have over 300 English conducted options. They've been doing it for a really long time. And I've just been incredibly impressed by their programs. I have not found any that are not friendly to American students. That one really stands out. Scandinavia also. I'm visiting a number of schools this January in Eastern Europe, where I've been blown away by the cost and the options, and I'll let you know about those as well. ACT and SAT scores depends on the country. Germany requires them. The Netherlands doesn't. Many times they're optional. You can provide them. There's a school in Finland called Aalto, and it is literally the only thing they look at. That is the exception, not the rule. But it's just really, it's an incredibly reputable school. And it's just interesting to me that even there's really something for everyone and everyone's qualifications in Europe. So that school would be great if you just kind of checked out during high school in terms of grades, but you were able to AC a SAT or SAT score. Mary, we do not have information at this point on grad school. We're thinking about that a couple of years down the road, but there are even more graduate programs and bachelor's degree programs. So that's sort of a overwhelming task that we're waiting on. Okay, and Julian has provided the information for the homeschool students. That is very helpful. Claire, the information the database has. So first of all, it's a searchable database. So you can search it by country, you can search it by price, by general area of study, by specific area of study, by region. There are all sorts of search options for that. On our website, we have an archive of a webinar we did that demonstrated the database. You might want to check that out. But I will say that we give admissions information, student life information, housing, what else? Country information, city information. I'm just about anything you could find in a college guidebook, we have there, and we are also updating it regularly. So if you're doing a gap year, it is better to wait to apply. And there's not a whole lot of the deferment stuff, and they also change programs year to year. Programs are being added. So yes, I think it's better to wait. The great thing about a gap year is that it opens up some possibilities. Sweden, for instance, you cannot apply to schools in Sweden until you actually have your high school diploma in hand. And their deadline is January. So this disqualifies most US seniors. Gap year opens up that whole country to you. Maya, these are all in person, not online. Stephanie, I'm assuming you're asking about the American universities that are in Europe. And I don't know, I have some mixed feelings on this. They're more expensive. Those are a few words about them. Sometimes they're more self-contained, sort of. It really varies. It really varies. I hate to say anything that general about them. They are 4 years and they are more expensive. And then after that, it really varies. So there's the American University in Bulgaria, which I'm very interested in, and I plan, it's on my short list of schools to visit. And they don't have very many American students. Then there are other universities, like there's Bard in Berlin, which is more just like a subset of their campus there. So they have most American students there. So it really varies school to school. Patrick and Catherine. Oh, Stephanie, I will say, though, that in our database, we have a section called Jen Says, and that's where I can give you my objective opinions. And so when I visit schools and have that opinion that, hey, this is like all Americans here, or whatever it may be, I do put that sort of stuff in the Jen Says section. We don't take any money from schools, which allows us to be very objective, and give you our honest opinions. Patrick and Catherine, if you have an associate's degree, most of the qualifications you would need when applying as a high schooler are not needed. I will say, though, that often credits don't transfer because we don't have the they don't have the gen ed requirements we do. So often an associate's has a lot of the things that transfer over as gen ed requirements, and those don't end up transferring. Let's see, do you need to take AP tests? So AP tests are needed for certain countries: Italy, the Netherlands, Denmark, and I feel like there's one I'm just not able to think of off the top of my head. Those schools need 3 to 4 those countries need 3 to 4 AP courses. Otherwise, they're not needed for any of the other countries. But SATs cannot substitute for those requirements. Cambridge AICE, I'm not familiar with those. So yeah, I can't speak to that, Sarah, I'm sorry. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I will say this though, an IB diploma is the other way. There, you know, when a school has or a country has qualifications that are needed of American students, if you have an IB diploma or a year of college credit, then you generally do not need those extra the AP courses or whatever else the school is asking for. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap up then. Again, if you're a member and you're on this call, feel free to join us at 2:30. You can ask as many questions as you'd like during that time. Next month, we will be having our webinar on the admissions processes and requirements and all of that. So please feel free to join us for that and shoot us any questions you may have after this. Thanks so much.